Today's guest on Guitar Players in Isolation is Jason Barry. I'm thrilled to have him as a guest. If you're returning to my channel, thanks so much for your support, and if you haven't done so already, please hit the subscribe button and the bell notification button. And if you're new, I hope you love this interview, and if you do, feel free to check around on the channel because there's 12 other amazing interviews with great talented guitar players from the Southern Ontario area. Well, let's get started. Jason, how are you?
Good, man. How are you?
Oh, not too bad. You know, keeping as busy as I can. I know you're really busy. I mean, I think it's we've been back and forth on Facebook Messenger for at least 6 weeks trying to get a time. You got a busy schedule, and we'll get into. No, it's great. We'll get into all the amazing things that you do and become known for doing. Yeah, you know, maybe I'll just do a little brag so people who are tuning in that maybe aren't familiar with you. We'll get all that out of the way. So you're a producer, you're a songwriter, you own your own studio, you're a guitarist, you do post audio for movies and TV. You've been in Dean Brody's band for 11 years now.
Yeah, going on. Yeah,
it's been 11, right? Like it's
just This is our 11th year, which is crazy. Yeah.
So you've been on every single album. You've done every album with them.
Well, not on every album, but most of them somewhere, you know, you make an appearance, but there's been a few that have slipped through that I didn't get to play on, or, you know, it's different every time. It depends on the situation, who's where, and if they track down south or if they're up here.
And countless awards. I think it's, I know, I was on your website and then I was trolling your Facebook. So between CCMA, Ontario CMA, Junos, you got to be up to about 30 now.
Yeah, somewhere in there. Yeah, I think there's a little, there's one of the trophy cases over there.
That's awesome.
Yeah, there's a few.
That's great. Touched on it before we got on, and I did an interview with Wendell Ferguson. I've known him for quite a while. But like him, you've both been retired from the CCMA Guitar Player of the Year award. So they retired you, both of you, from it and stuck you in the Hall of Fame.
That's it. Yeah.
Well, that's quite the honor.
It is cool. Yeah, you know, and I've known Wendell, you know, since the beginning of it all too, you know, since I first came to Ontario and started working and stuff. He was one of the first guys I met, and he helped me a lot along the way at the beginning. It's nice to be the other guy with him now and that.
It's good company.
Yeah, it's really, yeah, he's a great guy.
And you guys work together. I mean, he was telling me that he was just before the lockdown, you know, he was doing some recording with you and he was contemplating going out there to do his vocals.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we started the record in the Ontario studio, and then I moved the studio out east to my hometown to be with my family and my mom, who's aging. You know, so I just want to be around her more and do a little more with the kids. So we kind of decided to, you know, take the studio away from the house, and so I bought a farm out here on the water, 20-acre farm with a supercross track for the son, and so it's kind of a little place to go away and record. And then we have a house here too. So it's about 10 kilometers away. So it just kind of puts the home away from the work, because it was getting pretty gray for a while. You know, I'd sneak out to do a quick little bounce for somebody, and then 3 hours later, you know, you miss a lot when the studio's right in your basement or in your another building on your property. You know?
Your studio was for the longest time in the Clements, Ontario, which is kind of like
St. Clements, which is Waterloo, basically.
Yeah, Kitchener-Waterloo.
Yeah,
and you've been there. You kind of started that about 13 years ago?
Yeah, I started it before we bought that property. We were in Waterloo by Rim Park, if anybody knows that area. And then when we decided to have children, we decided we want to go to the country kind of side of things. So we went to St. Clements, and it's really close to St. Jacobs. So if you know that area, it's beautiful, kind of farming country, a little more yard and all that kind of stuff, you know, a little more land.
I don't know that area, but I'll probably start to know it because my daughter is going to start attending first year at Laurentian.
Oh, amazing.
So going to be online for a semester.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
But she's going there, so she'll have a better connection.
That's it. It's our little world right now. So
literally just a few hours before we got together, I saw a press release that Dean Brody is doing a drive-in concert at the Markham Fairgrounds, which is close to me, for Canada Day. I know that Brett Kissel started this with about 10, so that's kind of exciting.
He did it out west, and this will be the first Ontario concert since COVID, really, like the first drive-in concert.
I assume you're part of it, right?
I am. Yeah.
Oh,
We were discussing it today. There's restrictions and travel and all that kind of stuff, but it looks like it shouldn't be an issue. I talked to some friends of mine who are in the government here, and they're like, yeah, you can travel. You just have to quarantine when you come back. So
right.
I have the studio, so I'm allowed to be here for the 14 days after I come back from Ontario. Right. I don't have to quarantine there, which is kind of scary. I just fly right in, do my stuff, have a great time, and then. But when I come back here, it's a little more strict.
I know one of the guys, Junior. He works with a company called Jamco, and he's part of the production for that show.
Awesome.
So have you been working with I guess Brett Kissel's team to kind of figure out what kind of nuances this will bring as opposed to a standard festival show?
Not really. Like, I spoke to a friend of mine who also lives in the East Coast, who's in Brett's band. We talked more about travel, and he said it was a little strange because, the 6 feet distance. So there's no, there's none of this to the lead singer and all. You're keeping your distance. So it's a little like an 80s country band here. Everybody's kind of in their spot, but it's, that's just the way it is right now. I think, maybe we're allowed to move together a little bit. I'm not 100% sure until we get there and kind of go through a run through, But according to those guys, they just it was business as usual. They were excited to just plug their stuff in and go again, which we all are. Like, we've had a few, texts going back and forth about how exciting it's going to be just to complain about the monitors again. It's just, you don't know what you got until it's gone, right? You just assume everything's going to be the same. And then one day you wake up and we're in the middle of this, right?
Yeah, that was a good Joni Mitchell song.
Yeah, that's right.
Some pictures I saw from the Brett Kissel shows looked like there was a lot of plexiglass going on.
Yeah, I saw that too.
That was a little odd looking, but
I'm not sure if that'll be our case or not. That was their concert out west.
Yeah,
but, we'll see when we get there.
And then the audience is hearing it through their car stereos, right? That's the whole idea.
I think so. That's what I understand, and that's the. I haven't heard that part of it yet. If it's going to be a big PA and they're going to have to just listen out their car, out their window, but I assume it's going to blast through your radio waves.
Well, it's a good thing most cars now have decent stereos.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
I think we're around the same age, give or take a few, but when we were kids, that AM radio sure wouldn't be great to hear the concert through.
Wasn't great. Mono, right?
Yeah. The 1 6x9 speaker in the dash.
Yeah.
Recently, you also did a show that's pretty typical of this lockdown. You did the kind of Hollywood Squares sort of thing. You did a show with Jade Eagleson on the Marilyn Dennis Show, and everybody was doing their parts and recording it from their own homes, and it all got pieced together. So how did that come together, and how did it go?
It went great, I think. They played it on air, and everybody seemed to really like it.
Look at that sun setting. If this ain't heaven, we're close. Yeah, we're close.
Really like it. So we just kind of, it's that thing where one guy plays his part, and then the other guy does the overdub, just because of the latency with this type of world. We can't play together. Like, you and I can't jam right now, which is kind of a jam. Right. It's like kind of a bummer, but so one guy sends his, and then you add your part to it, and then it all gets, combined, and then it went to air, and it turned out really well. I thought, like, I played steel on that one. I normally play guitar, but they were looking for a utility guy, and I just said, hey, I love that guy's voice. I saw him play a while back with a friend of mine, Gord Bamford, and I was blown away by the guy's voice, and I'm that kind of guy. Every time I hear a voice that I really love, I'm like, I want to be in that band. Same with Dean. The first time I heard Dean's voice, I'm like, I don't know where that guy is from or whatever, but I really want to be in that band someday, because he came up with a song called Brothers and it blew me away. So
he was on the award show like back in September, I think.
Yeah.
That's
really good. When
you're touring live with Dean, you do a lot. You have a lap steel as part of your thing. On this, you were playing pedal steel.
Yeah. I'm not going to call myself a pedal steel player, because that would just be setting myself up for failure. But I'm a pedal steel owner for about 15 years. I know my way around it, and I love the instrument, and I love the guys who play it.
For sure.
They're some of the nicest musicians in the world are the steel players. Honestly, like when you talk about guys like Doug Johnson and Burke Carroll and Ed Ringwald, and they're some of my favorite people, so it's.
A few interviews back, I interviewed Doug DeVoe, who's got a studio out in Oshawa, and he works all the time with Doug Johnson. I think that's his kind of first call pick for pedal steel, and he's one of the best.
We call them the two Dougs, and one's upright Doug and one's floor model Doug. So
the nominations came out a few months back for the CMA Ontario Awards, and once again, you're nominated. But this will be kind of extra special for you because it'll be your last time being able to qualify for a CMA Ontario Award since you've moved back out to New Brunswick.
Yeah, I won't qualify anymore.
You're up for an award with another one of my guests there, Paul Chapman in the Western Swing Authority.
Oh, yeah, they're great.
And Shane plays with Dean Brody and you, right?
Brought Shane into Dean's band. Dean and I, Shane and I have played together for years, since the early 2000s. And he was with George Canyon's band at the time. And then they kind of scaled down his band. He wasn't touring as much. So I called Shane up and said, hey, do you want to come on the road with us? We're kind of looking to expand the band. And he said, sure. And so he's a great addition to the band in every way, because he's a great personality and he's an incredible musician and he's a great friend. So it's been great to have him in the band for sure. Yeah,
I think when it comes to Canadian country, I see Shane on stages just as much as I see you on stages.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like whoever the act is, you're either one of you is on the stage.
Yeah, it's great. We're lucky.
He's a Waterloo guy, so I just assumed you guys kind of going back a long time.
Yeah, we do. And it wasn't necessarily the geographic location. It was the bands that we were in. Like we played in Jason Mccoy's band for a long time. And I was and I guess we kind of were in the Kitchener area. I was in that area for a while, and so was he. But it just seemed to evolve to where it is. I miss him a lot actually since I moved out east. It's wonderful to be with my family and all that, but I just kind of miss hanging out with Shane every once in a while and a few of the guys there. So I fly them out here to play music with me.
Well, you've been in the business a long time and made a lot of contacts, and a lot of them are based out in that Kitchener-Waterloo area in Toronto. So moving out to New Brunswick, have you been trying to build new contacts for artists and session players in the area that you're in? So New Brunswick, PI, Nova Scotia. How's that going? It's going
well, actually. And I think the world just does that automatically. And this is really, this as of late, that's really amplified it. A lot of people are reaching out from all over the country and the world, really. Like I work with people in the US and in Europe and in Canada, so we're just kind of, there's a lot of guys shipping me stuff. I'll play on it, send it back, and vice versa. If there's somebody I'm really specifically looking for, I'll just send it to them. They'll track it to them. We were kind of doing that before all of this, but this really kind of solidified it all. It made it more practical to do that and kind of necessary. If you were still creating music and you wanted to get a specific player, you couldn't fly them in. You had to actually just use them in their home studio. So it's been good for the independent musicians to learn how to take care of their own as far as recording and all that stuff. And it's been good for guys like me that just want to maybe try a new guy out on something specific and say, hey man, play on this. And it's a bit of a gamble, but if you know who they are, chances are they're great enough to play on the stuff. So
the need to be able to record on your own from home has been around for a while now, but it's really becoming important now during this lockdown as we, record our files and send them around. So it's really becoming a skill that everybody's got to know if, you want to work in the business. Is there some sort of a minimum amount of equipment a guitar player would need to be able to send you a file that has enough quality that you can work with it?
Well, I think that's a tricky one. There are guys that are really great at recording and have good gear that could probably record in GarageBand and it would just be fine. But then there's guys that maybe don't, that should probably have a better format. But for the most part, honestly, I think digital formats, as long as you're comfortable inside working with it, they're all pretty good, So we could have a discussion for hours about what platform. I think the protocol mostly is, I'm gonna say like 2 or 3. Obviously you'll hear Pro Tools is a very common one. Logic is another very common one, and there's a few more that are out there that people really like, and But I think as long as you're efficient and send something back to the producer, that's easy to place, and you understand what compiling in one file so the guy can just lay it in his session and use it. I think your format is fairly fine. But yeah, there is a level of gear, like good microphones and all of that stuff. But a lot of it is the player. Like I know a lot of guys that I'd be skeptical if I didn't know how great they were. I'd be like, oh man, you're going to use, this type of preamp with that type of microphone. And then you hear it and it's like, yeah, it sounds great because it's in there, for most of those guys.
So since my series is guitar players in isolation, let's drill down on guitar stuff. Do you have a preference on miking guitar amps or using the kind of simulators like a Fractal or a Kemper or an Axe Effects? What's your preference?
It depends on the part, obviously, for me. If it's just a core part, chances are it's okay on a simulator. And I mean, when you talk about Kempers and things like that, they're really,
they're good.
Pretty wonderful sounding gear. I'm going to get murdered by guitar guys, but I mean, obviously there's nothing like plugging into an amp that's hitting a room with a microphone in it. There's a definite difference in how it feels to you as a player, for sure. And then, audio wise, for sure, the way it comes back, it just, to me, in my opinion, it has more life if it's a real amp and that kind of stuff. There's a little more to it. Like you take a guy who's a real slide player that loves slide and is using the grid of the amp and the guitar and the amp together. You could never do that on a simulator,
Well, that's good to hear. I made a nice little background. I could put a couple fenders back there.
But yeah. Sorry, I should have worked on my downstairs in the studio.
You got a nice 335 back there, so that's I love amps, but all the stuff you see on YouTube, it's like you said, the Kemper and the Fractal, and it's so close, the sounds, But
I actually recorded my AC30 into my Kemper. It's not like a lot of people go, oh, you just switch it to AC30 and manipulate the buttons. It's not the way with a Kemper. You actually profile your amp,
right.
You actually record it in. So you can use your favorite microphone through your Neve preamp and record it right into the Kemper and use it. So
I haven't gotten into any of that, and I don't know if I will.
Yeah, it's a big hole, right? You get in there, and then that's it. You're swimming forever.
Maybe I'll have to wait for the next pandemic to get into fractals. Let's go way back to how you got started. Doing the research on you, I couldn't really find out when you got started. So if you could tell us, when you got started and when you moved, from New Brunswick out to Waterloo.
That story all goes together, and I can give you a synopsis of the whole thing pretty much. Great. Like most of us, I grew up playing pretty young. It ran in my family, so everybody, and from the East Coast, there's a lot of musicians. You played together on the weekends or what have you. So I had a guitar in my hands pretty early. I didn't, I was playing in bands probably when I was 14, but just like hootenanny bands and things like that. But got to cut my teeth in with some local guys here who were really great to me. Shirley Duffy and Amy Jardine and all these guys, they had like a band and they would raise money for people. So I was allowed to play in that. And we did the dances and stuff, and it was a lot of fun. So then I got accepted to school to do electronics engineering, which is my other passion. I was really into that. And I went out with a bunch of my friends to a Sunday afternoon jam in a bar here that was called the Urban Corral, and it was in a little town called Chatham, which is not far from here. Went in with a bunch of my buddies, same old thing, hey, my guy's really good, get him up on stage. So, finally the guy gave up and went, okay, come on up and sing with us and play with us. And his name was Ron Griffin, and Cripple Creek was the name of the band. And they were an Ontario band based out of Kitchener.
Oh, okay.
So I went up and started playing, and we hit it off immediately. It's just like we played together for years. So we had a great time, and the other guitar player just sat down and got a little, into that. And so I ended up playing the rest of the day. And then, we're in the washroom, and the lead singer kind of goes, hey man, do you want to come on the road with this? We're looking for a new guitar player. We don't like that guy. We want to get rid of him. I shouldn't say that. We're looking to replace that guy, And I don't know why. I don't know what possessed me, because I knew I was going to go to school and I had all my books and I had paid for a bunch of the tuition. And I just went,
no.
Yeah, I want to go. I just want to get out of this town. You know, at the time it was, when you're 19, you're like, I need out of here, you know?
You paid already the tuition?
Yeah. So I put my BB Bandit and I put it in a trunk, and I had my Yamaha guitar, and I hopped on a train to Sioux Lookout, Ontario, and played my first 6-nighter in a bar, and it was rough.
So how long were you playing guitar until then?
Man, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm going to say maybe at around 11 or 12.
Okay, yeah.
That's
the same age.
Somewhere in there, we're picking it up. There wasn't much else to do. You rode your bike, or
you and your mom are super close, but you must
Really?
have just broke her heart.
She was, she was upset for a while, and then but so then I went out. You know, I went out with this band. That wasn't great. They were my parents obviously were upset that I ditched school and went on the road. And then Wendell. So there's a whole other thing here. It's coming to Wendell.
Okay.
So basically, I was playing a bar in Kitchener, and a songwriter friend of mine named Dennis Shear came in and saw me playing, and he's like, "Man, you're really good. I want to introduce you to a studio guy that I know, a producer," and his name was Rick Hutt.
Okay.
And so he took me one day to meet Rick Hutt, and then Rick, you know, does the thing where he's like, "Oh, I hear you're a guitar player." And Rick's I don't know if you know Rick Hutt, but he's kind soul. You know, he helps a lot of people. And I said, "Yeah, I'm a guitar player." And so he got me to play on a few things. And then it was like, "Hey, what are you doing tomorrow?" And then I came back and played on a couple other things. And then I started doing BG vocals on stuff for records. And then I ended up, you know, meeting all these guys like Jamie Warren and Bev Mahood and in that era, and started playing on all their stuff and co-writing with all of them. And then that snowballed. And then basically Charlie Major was doing a cattle call for guitar players. And at the time he was the biggest thing. Like there was nobody bigger than Charlie.
Yeah, sure.
That was just pre Shania Twain, you know? So it's just like, he was the guy. And so I thought, there's no way I'm going to get the gig, but I'll give it a shot. And it was Wendell Ferguson who suggested to try me out for the gig.
Oh, terrific.
So I went and tried out for the gig, sat with Charlie and went through all that stuff. And I thought, oh, I'll never get this gig. Went home, he called me up and got the gig.
That's
so
amazing.
Then by the time I was probably in town for maybe 2 years and got the Charlie Major gig. So I was on a tour bus right away. And that was my parents' favorite singer. So
you won her
when
over.
I got that gig, they were like, "Oh, that was great. That was a good decision. You know, you made it." And so my dad was happy and mom loved it. And then she would fly out and come to shows. Like, man, we played so many shows, and she came out. The first tour I went on with Charlie was with guys like Stuart Smith and Mike McAdam and like really heavy players. And I had no idea. And Alison Krauss was opening for us for the first tour I was ever on. So that was, my mom got to see that one, and it was crazy. And then after that, it just continued on. I continued to be a session player, and it grew, you know, nationally. Like I got to play on people's records all over Canada. And then it kind of squirted into the US because we were traveling back and forth. So I was doing a lot of demo sessions in the US too. When we were there, I shouldn't say that if the government of United States is watching us, but yeah, we were kind of doing that too, you know, and then it just kind of went from act to act. It seemed like every 5 or 6 years they would cross over. So I with Charlie, I was with him for a long time, and I produced his last 5 records, I think, since, you know, so I've known him for, you know, 25 years. So then it went with Jason Mccoy, and then it kind of stemmed to Aaron Lyons, and then it kind of built to Dean Brody, and, you know, like all those guys in between. There was a lot of artists in between I was lucky enough to play with.
You mentioned when you joined Charlie Major and you started touring, the other guitar player was Stuart Smith. And for the viewers, if you don't know, Stuart Smith has been the main guitar player in the Eagles, taking over since Don Felder left. So he plays all the, you know, the intricate, complicated parts. Basically, him and Joe Walsh that do all the main guitar parts now. So when you were playing with Charlie Major, did you know like how good this guy was?
Oh yeah, like he's the guy that played on that first record that made Charlie really famous. Like that's Stuart. And at the time, he was playing on everybody's records. You know, Winona Judd, Ben Skill, and
Oh, wow.
You name it. He was the guy. I had no idea who Stuart
Yeah,
Smith
that's what I was going to ask. Yeah.
I was from New Brunswick. I was like, I didn't read the credits. He's a pretty good guitar player, you know? So, and then he showed me a lot of stuff. He was so kind. Like, he would just say, oh, you know, try your setting like this, you know, and he would adjust my button. I'd try it and go, wow, that sounds really good. And, you know, and Mike McAdam too, another guy, he played with Steve Earle and the Dukes and Rodney Foster and all those guys forever. He was the other guy, and he was equally as kind, you know, he would show me tons of stuff, and still, we're all good friends still, you know.
That's
which
amazing.
Is kind of great. Like
So you mentioned you went from Charlie Major to playing with just a host of artists like Jason Mccoy, Aaron Lyons, Jamie Warren, Diane Chase, Paul Brandt, and you were kind of just bouncing from one to the other. How were you able to get the set list down from one artist to the next and just kind of going back and forth?
I'm not sure. You know, I couldn't do it now, I don't think. I think it was just that's all I did at the time was play guitar and sing. And I think my ability to sing and always being the harmony guy made it easier for me to learn all the songs because I associated it with the lyric and the harmony. So all the parts kind of fell into that, you know, so it kind of makes it easier to learn when there's something to lean on to remind you.
So like my other guest, Paul Chapman, you were busy working at Cedartree Studios with the guys from that area, like Jamie Warren and Beverly Mahood. What was that like?
Paul and I played on a ton of stuff together. Like
the John Laundrie stuff was all, he had all that fast chicken picking. And Jason and Blaine, you produced a lot.
Yeah, I produced his stuff, so I got play on it. And I had Paul play on a few of those records, I'm pretty sure.
And in the interview I did with him, I think I played one of the Jason Blaine tunes when he's he's doing his 90 mile an hour up down.
Yeah, and he does other stuff really great too. Like usually when I hire Paul, it's not for that. It's
okay, interesting.
Yeah, I'll pull him out of his thing, you know, but he's a killer player. He's good at name it, he can do it, and he's a terrible human being. He's very miserable to be around. He's such a hoot to be around. He's such a good guy. No, we played a lot of stuff together, but if it's something I'm not like 100% sure I want to do, or I'm just looking for another guy, I'll often call Paul. I like his approach to things, and he's a clean player, and he's a joy, right? He's a nice guy. If it's not exactly what you're looking for, you go, hey man, do you want to try it like this? And he'll do it. No problem. Great. You know, I call him lightning because he never hits the same place twice.
So Cedartree Studios has it's another meaningful thing about that studio is you met your wife there, I believe.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, through that studio, she was doing recordings on a lot of guys that you were working with at the same time.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so we met during the John Landry era. So she was the fiddle player playing on some of the John Landry stuff, and then I thought she was pretty, so I was producing some stuff, and I invited her to play on some of the stuff I was producing, and then we just kind of hit it off. And one day she brought banana bread to the session, and I went, wow.
That's great.
And now she's my wife, and we have a couple of kids, and her family's moving here too. They bought a beautiful place just up from the studio here, and we're going to have all of our family together. It's going to be nice.
Yeah, I mean, she played what I could look up, Michelle Wright and Terry Clark, and even some Dean Brody stuff she's been on.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Ah, that's great.
Keep it in the family.
Like we said earlier, Baritone Studios has been in the Kitchener-Waterloo area for 11, 12 years before you moved. And there was a real kind of hot spot of artists in that area, Beverly Hood and Jimmy Ward, and out in Stratford, David Kalmusky. And Jason Blaine came, but you played a role in him coming there, and you played a big role in getting his career started.
Jason came on an invite from us, Jamie Warren and I. We were playing a gig in Pembroke, where Jason is from. It was his dad going, my son's the best, get him up to play with us or with you guys. And we're like, oh God, here we go. So we thought, well, let's get him up and see how he does. And he played great. He played a Vince Gill tune. And then he gave us a cassette tape, which we listened to on the way back. And then we thought, wow, this kid is really good. Let's give him a call and invite him down for a writing session and see how he does. And he came down at the time with his girlfriend, Amy, and we all just hit it off. We became immediate friends, and I gave up my old apartment, and he and Amy took the apartment.
Oh, wow.
And then I he wanted to do a record, but nobody really wanted to do it. Nobody wanted to take a chance. And so I spoke up and said, I'll do it. I'll take the chance. I'll do it with them. And so they let me do it. And at the time it was Cedartree and then Spin Records. So they wouldn't sign it, but they let me do the record. And so, and the rest is history. He got off the ground with that record. And then
Girl, you got the spotlight like, yeah. Girl, you got the spotlight like, yeah.
he kind of migrated to Nashville and did a few, and it did okay. And then he came back, and then we did the Life So Far record, which seemed to hit some nerves with a lot of people. And then now he's traveling back and forth. He lives in Nashville now with his wife Amy, and they have 4 children.
Oh wow.
4 kids for sure. And they're just they're down there full time now. They're residents down there.
Have you felt that the scene has changed from when you were there? And if so, how?
It's changed a lot. Like, I think people, before the internet got great and all of that stuff, it was more about being central or with everybody else who was doing what you were doing or like-minded. So I think we all moved to that Toronto area because you couldn't play a session online. You couldn't meet each other like this and work together. And now I think the internet has just made the world so small. Mm-hmm. If you didn't tell a person where you were from, they probably would never know, because most of the time there's not a lot of guys doing, in the commercial scene, not doing a lot of sessions together, unless it's like an artist that has a specific thing with a group of artists or a group of musicians. You don't see a lot of sessions in Canada anymore like that are all together. Although I love that style. Yeah, sure. That's how I do most of my records. I'll get them all in the room together, and like this studio has 7 isolation rooms, and
oh wow,
everybody has all that stuff. So I'm still a fan of what happens when people are in the room together. So sure. I try to do it when the budgets allow, then we do that. But
did you build your studio kind of almost like a retreat that you can bring guys in and they can stay over? You got like
this summer we're having a guest house built here. So there's 20 acres, like I said. We're on the water. So it's basically you fly in and you stay for free. And it's a 3-bedroom, 1-bath guest house. And the studio has rooms too. Like if you want, and it's 3 levels. I should take you for a little tour. There's 3 levels, and it's 7 ISO rooms and lots of places to be where.
That's awesome.
So, and if you're not into it at that, specific moment, then you can just go for a hike or a walk, or I got 4-wheelers for the guys. So if they want to go for a 4-wheeler ride, or just stuff like toys, so you can have some fun, or kayaks, or there's all kinds of fun, and even a tractor. So if you want to do some yard work, you can do that.
I hope you're really enjoying this interview with Jason, because I sure am. Anyway, while I was sitting here editing, he just emailed me a tour of his studio. So I'm going to show that to you right now.
Is he down here? All right. Let's head upstairs. Spiral stairs. Going up into the drum room. It's like a theater kind of setup, So here we go. This is a tongue and groove pine room. This is the house kit, sonar kit. I love it, actually. It sounds great. I'll go to this side so it makes more sense. It's all lofted, and you can see there's a balcony up there. So you can step out and take videos and so on. It's a nice high ceiling, so at 25 feet. There you go. And there's a nice view. It's very country here, right? So there's horses and stuff over there. And there's a bathroom downstairs. Nothing fancy, just a regular bathroom. And this is sort of the first ISO room. These are all connected in the main level by patio doors. So this is a great sounding little room, actually. I like doing acoustics and stuff in here. And there's the control room window. Here's a little wood room, and you can probably hear it, the difference when I walk in. It sounds great. And I do a lot of my vocals here right now until my 0 dB booth comes from Ontario. And it's a really nice sounding room. I might just keep it, actually. There's another ISO room here. It's a bigger one, so you could have whatever. Some guitars down here too. There's a sunroom out there, which is nice to hang out and look. There's surrounded by country and water. There's 20 acres here, so there's lots of space for walking. This is control room number 1. This is where I do most of my music stuff. It's a mess right now. I've been working on some stuff. I'm working on a Tenniel Arts tune right at the moment. Anyhow, so that's where I mix a lot of my music stuff. All right, so let's go to the next level. My cabinets, etc. You know, you get the drill. A bunch of stuff that I've worked on in the past. You know, some records and stuff like that. There's an old grandfather clock that it was actually my grandfather's. There you go. So records all the way up as you go up the stairs. And there's some passes from shows I've done, and you know, the quintessential Beatles poster that you gotta have at every studio. This is the door that takes you out the balcony over the drum room, so you can, you know, take videos of the drummer because they love that. You can see down the stairs and so on. So it's, and I got ambient mics up here for the drums, ribbon mics, and they sound cool. There's the coffee room. You gotta have one of those. So this is the upstairs one, obviously. And, you know, espresso machine, all that kind of stuff, because our musicians like our coffee. So, and an old pine table, which is kind of cool. I love that kind of look. I just wanted it to be warm and cozy here. There's a bathroom up here with a shower and all that kind of stuff. There'll be a guest house here too. Here's another ISO room. All these are connected. Like I said, I got 16 channels for every musician, so they can mix their own headphones. Some more guitars up here. Yeah, and then the second control room up here. Some cool lighting up here too. It's where I do most of my post-audio stuff is up here, just for a change of scenery. It's a HD Pro Tools rig again. Maybe in some speakers. I won't tell you which one's better, but you could probably guess. Some more gear and some views. There you go. You get kind of the idea here. Pretty fun place to be. So there you go. Quick tour. I found myself when I was doing sessions in Toronto, it felt, and I'm not knocking it, I'm not dissing any of it.
Totally different.
They're all great studios and they're incredible engineers, but there was something really that bothered me about going, oh my God, I got to move my car. I got to feed the meter, and you know, I got to move my car because, you know, between 1 and 2, you can't park there, and then you're trying to find parking, and it's just stiff. It just feels like, and then you play your part and get out there as fast as you can. You're just trying to get it done fast, you know?
Yeah.
Where I think I wanted to do some records at some point that were maybe bigger than that, you know, maybe Grammy material.
Excellent.
Work on something for an hour, you know, like Rick Rubin, like work on it, you know, make it great.
The old days, yeah. Well, it kind of sounds like Baritone Studios should be on TripAdvisor.
Well, not yet. We're getting there. Like it's not 100% done, but it's very close. Now I've been working on it for about a year, and I've had guys in, and we kind of did a lot of construction. So there's a lot of construction stuff to do when you have a studio, you know.
Sure.
So we've got all of that done, and now it's just the details, just a few little details, and then I'll probably advertise it, but I think our best advertising is this, you know, like the people who are in the industry are kind of our best advertising.
Sure. Yeah. It's a word of mouth sort of a business, for sure.
I never really thought I'd open it up to a local rock band. You know, it never was in my, although that might be a lot of fun, and I'll probably do that at some point, but most of the time it's country guys that I'm working with, or folky artists or stuff like that.
Sure. Another big change in the industry, which it'd be interesting to hear your take on it, is that, so many people are now just kind of recording singles, and they're kind of putting it out, maybe every 3-4 months they put out a song. And so they're not necessarily going into the studio to cut 10 songs and release it all at the same time. So how has that kind of changed the business?
Well, I think it's modular, right? I think it's, as a brand, I'm not sure how that works in the long run. I think that's a tricky one, because I think there are artists out there that just want a great song and anybody can write it, and it doesn't matter. And that's great. That's the singles game. And then I think there's artists out there that kind of want to be, that are in it for they want to be, the Lyle Lovetts or the Steve Earles, and they're trying to create something where you go, I want it to sound like. And so I think that's the difference. I think if you're, maybe if you're just chasing singles, it's tough to get a brand that's really solid. Like even Dean does full records all the time. So he has a definite sound and a brand, like as soon as it comes on, you go, oh, that's Dean,
Right.
And people like that, they still do big records, but I think out of budgets and so on, they do singles and so on. Although the singles I find they're getting very expensive for the artists, depending on where they're going. And, I hope it gets easier for the artists. That's always my intention. When anybody calls me, I always try to work with them regardless of what the budget is. If I like who they are, it's not just like, no, it's as much. It's kind of like, oh, I really like you. Let's try it. And, we'll work out that money thing later. It'll, pay me in smelts, or I don't know, pay me in something. It doesn't matter.
Maybe we'll talk after this.
Yeah, oh, for sure. Yeah. And I found, all my favorite acts that I've ever worked with were kind of like that. They were just starting, and
oh, wow.
You have to give people a break at the beginning. Nobody walks in knowing what they're doing.
First couple times in the studio was, it's that kind of thing where you're trying to act cool and pretend like you know what's going on. So you're like, no problem, and you get a little experience. You start to understand a little bit, how this works. But yeah, there's a lot to it. But I would just imagine with the singles, someone like you, there's kind of like a lot more volume of work, or a lot more different artists. Instead of focusing for 2 weeks on a band, you've got people coming in and out, one or two songs. Yeah.
And those are fun too. Like I've done a bunch of that work too. And I love it because, I was talking to a friend of mine, Pete Lesperance, who you should have in the show.
Okay.
We've had this conversation where it's kind of a breath of fresh air once in a while that you just work on one song with somebody and then it's gone. You're not trapped in a big long thing. Cause maybe, you're trying to make 10 songs as great as the best, but yeah, there's a breath of fresh air there too. Just doing one or two singles for somebody and then a full record. But yeah, it's definitely changed. And I don't tend to fly guys in for a one-off. What I'll often do is if I have a group of people that are looking for a single, I'll bring the band in and do all of the acts with a particular band that I think will work with those.
Okay, that makes sense.
I'll do the fundamentals with a group of guys that I like and then ship, add the color on top. Like maybe I'll get Paul to play on somebody specific, or, it could be anybody, that you want for that specific artist, which is a nice way to do it too. I'm still a fan of real musicians, although, the technology is getting amazing and, we're all still, there's lots of drum editors and machines or, all of that stuff, the samples and stuff that are so great. It's pretty tough you can fool most people with it, but there's certain types of songs that are tough to program really.
Yeah.
Well,
if it's a feel thing and it's not totally on the grid, you want a little bit of freedom to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've read in several places that many feel your real specialty in recording is recording vocalists. I thought it would be guitar players, but your specialty seems to be in capturing great vocals. What do you do that makes that process so special?
Well, I don't think I've ever said it was, but I've had many artists say, thank you, you've brought the best out for me and stuff. I think it's just understanding the pressure on that side of the microphone as a background singer. And I sang on a few things myself. So I understand that sort of red light pressure and, some very big artists that have record company pressure. And I think the key is to tap into the emotion of the song or help them relax as another individual and just say, look, I'm not going to judge you by what you're wearing and if you sing great every time. It's about, if you give me something that's amazing and I have to tune it, it's no big deal. It's like, that's what that tool is for, is to save something great, And so I think you just learn to talk to each specific person because everybody is different. You can't sort of swipe everybody with one glove and go, this is how I do it. And then that's how it works. So you learn to work with every individual, and if you're lucky enough to work with them multiple times, I think you really get to tap in on the way they work the best and the times that they work the best, because I know like a guy like Jason is way better in the afternoon guy like Dean, kind of same thing. But there's early morning people like Michelle Wright can drop a vocal. That girl could sing any time of day. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But she's great, you know. But I mean, everybody has a thing, you know. Somebody might want dark lighting. Somebody wants a bright light with their words right there. Everybody is different. So you got to tap into what brings the best out of them. And I think I've been lucky enough to do that because I've been able to work with people more than once or twice, that you get to figure that out with them, you know.
I would have just assumed everybody figured you were the guy to record guitar best.
Yeah.
Just because, but I mean, let's talk about that. Do you have some, you know, I know this could be a separate thing for an hour to talk about how to record guitar, but do you have some, you know, kind of favorite signal paths that you use, some favorite amps and ways of miking it that you kind of use more often?
Yeah, for sure. Like if there's country singles, kind of up-tempo stuff, I have my kind of go-to begin, like my starting point. You know, I tend to, because I'm a producer, I kind of think in stages. I know where I'm headed, so I can play a part and go, that's going to be left channel here, you know, that's going to be right channel there, and I'll leave the space, or, you know, I'll figure out a way to put it all together mentally before I start. So I think, you know, as a producer and as an engineer, it helps me do that. So, but yeah, like for sure, if I'm doing a slide thing, I have a go-to rig that I love that just seems to speak better than my telly through my AC30 rig, you know, that's good for this. And, you know, the super country stuff, it could be a Fender. Like I love, you know, what's behind you. Those are great for a lot of that stuff. And yeah, I think we all do. We have different tools, you know.
People know you by your first name, what you did last night. Here we go. People know you by your first name.
I've collected a lot of guitars over the years. Like Wendell probably told you, he and I are both kind of junkies. I think I'm at the 50 mark, at least.
Nice.
50 guitars or so. So you got the tool for the job. You know, if you want a big baritone sound, you grab it and plug it through your favorite amp. And you have a bunch of tools. And that Kemper has really come in. It's been wonderful, you know, to have that too. It's nice to just sit at my desk and not have to run and set up a big amp. If I'm just adding a simple chug part or something, you know,
right. Yeah.
Drag. So yeah, I think we all do, right? I think every guitar player has their go-to for what it is they're looking for.
Yeah.
Like your Strat bluesy sound is probably a smaller amp, and then, you know, your Tom Petty stuff is probably a bigger amp. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of got stuck in the just a tunnel vision of Fender combo. So I kind of like the sound of a Fender combo, and then I just got like in my closet, I got a really good Princeton that's like buried to keep the sound down. But it's just I just kind of go. I've always kind of been like, I like the combo, and I got different ones for different wattages for different rooms, you know, because I like it always at 4. You know?
Turn it up to 6 next time. See what happens.
Yeah. The drummer throws a stick at me. That's what happens.
Yeah. It's different for me every time. Like you learn a lot of tricks from other players too. Like I've learned some great slide stuff working with a guy from out west, and love watching him play. And man, you just learn their tricks. You know, the bass is up, and you know, most country guys, the bass is almost off if they're overdubbing solos and stuff. You know, everybody has a different trick to fit in the track, and
so I get
different amps, different levels.
Gives everybody a personality, right?
Yeah, for sure. And the guitar, like a Telly acts so much different than a 335. You know, it's just so different.
Well, a few years ago, Dean Brody put out a song that did really well for him called Beautiful Freakshow. And it's a real divergence from the country sound. I mean, this tune's got hip-hop in it. It's got a rapper from Nova Scotia, Chevy Price. It's got a little bit of a country kind of guitar thing. There's a spaghetti western solo. But it's different. So how did that come together, and what was your input on it?
You know, well, I didn't put that together. I helped a little bit in the background, but Matt Rovey and Dean Brody, when that guy has a vision, it's like he has a vision, and he's a bulldog to get it. So that's his baby. Like, Dean's one of the few acts that you could put him in the producer chair and it's going to turn out exactly like that. You know, he's really great. And so that was, a lot of that was his kind of,
Okay.
you know, so you just kind of following orders. And when you're there, you're going, this is really bizarre, but it's amazing. So yeah, I think that's a lot of just Dean. That wasn't an intentional, you know, that wasn't me producing. And
Okay.
you know, that's just Dean doing his thing and Matt Rovey kind of doing a lot of that stuff. I did a few things on that record. Man, I can't remember now. They're all washed together.
Okay. I just assumed you produced or co-produced it.
No, I didn't. Not
Okay.
that one.
Gotcha.
No, that's Rovey. Yeah, that is kind of. It's not out of my realm for sure. It's kind of in my wheelhouse. I would love to do it. You know, I helped out with some stuff, but mostly it's just those two guys brainstorming.
So you've been at this for so long, so it's got to be a blast to do something that's a lot out of the box, you know?
Yeah.
Just kind of gives
really
you
is.
new energy, and you kind of threw in something country. I mean, I'm guessing that's you who did the solo on it, you know?
I did.
The spaghetti Western thing.
Yeah, it's cloudy for me because we do so much stuff goes back and forth, and you know, like we play on some stuff and then who knows how much of it's getting used half the time.
Okay, gotcha.
I'm pretty sure like a lot, it's very much in my wheelhouse. There's another guy that Dean used that does that kind of thing too, like the Gretschy kind of stuff.
Right.
So there's a ton of stuff. There's cross-contamination all over that record. That was back and forth all year. That went a while. So
you've really built Baritone Studios into a really successful business in the industry, and you've been able to associate yourself and work with guys that are just at the top of their game in country music in Canada. I'm talking about guys like Ron Kitchener and Warren Kopnick and Gary Slate. I mean, these are really the top of the industry.
Really? Warren? No, I'm just kidding. Warren.
Yeah, well, yeah. So people don't know, right? Warren's with Sony, and Gary Slate's with Slate, and Ron Kitchener's with RGK Entertainment, right? So
well, Ron and I go back in the Mccoy days. Before Ron was RGK, he was the annoying manager in the bus with us, you know?
Oh, okay.
So we were just all buddies learning,
Gotcha. All right. Well,
learning the business together. So Ron and I are still close, you know, and there's a bunch of guys in those positions now. I think that just happens with age. They just kind of get promoted into these.
You grow together.
We started at the beginning. You know, I was 19 when I met Ron, and we've been friends ever since. We get together in the summers when we can. He has a cottage here in New Brunswick, and we get together with our kids and we do the tubing down the river here and stuff.
Oh, wow.
And Warren, same thing. I was just talking to Warren the other day. It was this celebrating an anniversary in the business, and Warren was just like a rep guy at BMG when I first started with Charlie Major. So he's literally the guy's like,
okay,
hey man, go get some beers. That was, Warren will kill me for saying that, but he was that guy. And there was the Snell girls at the time, like Jill Snell and her sister who has passed. She was in that company too, and we all worked together with Charlie in the Prairie Oyster era and all that kind of stuff. But so we just kind of grew up through the ranks together, you know.
Okay.
They grew up through the ranks, and I just stayed as a musician and a record producer.
Yeah, you progressed too.
You know, Gary Slate obviously is a wonderful, kind man who's done really well for himself, who loves music and musicians and, you know, and people. He's probably he's an amazing man, really. He gives to a lot of musicians for a lot of different ways. Like he'll help. I worked with a girl named Jessica Mitchell who he just loved. Right. And so he asked me to help her out. Well, he didn't. James Campbell did, or Jimmy Campbell, who was also a rep for Universal way back when and went to work with Gary for Slate Music. And he asked me to work with Jessica. But I mean, he believed in her so much. He was just, let's get her recorded in her voice and try to get her to Ron. And then Ron signed her, and it kind of all worked out since, you know.
Wow.
But yeah, I think that's just the evolution of music. When you kind of, if you're a lifer, and I'm a lifer, you know, I started.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, I wasn't doing anything other than this. So it's just who I am. I'm just a musician and a record producer, and I love the business and I love the people, and you try to help people. And if you're one of those people that are sincere about it and really try to help people, I think they'll remember you when when the times are good too, you know?
You know, it's really just we're fortunate enough to surround yourselves with really strong, talented people, and you kind of all grew and got successful together. So it's not like you're, you know, cold calling Ron or Warren. It's you knew them when they were nothing, you know, and you were nothing, and then you kind of just you grew together.
Yeah, we just know each other. You know, it's like Wendell. I'll talk to Wendell, and you know, he's just a friend now. You know, I forgot, but I remember watching him going, man, I want to do what he's doing one day. You know, just dreaming about it, and you know, now I'm producing a record with him, and it's so fun. It's a great place to be. You know.
Like you said, he got you involved with Charlie. Was he with Dwayne Steele at the time?
He was, yeah.
That's kind of my guess. Yeah.
And Charlie probably called Wendell and said, "Hey, can you play with me?" And
and he was busy. Yeah. No, I was trying to figure out why Wendell passed it up, but that's probably what it was. He was probably on the road with Dwayne at the time.
That's it. So he just said, "Hey, give this young guy a call," which is me at the time, and then it's 25 years later. So
you probably have to give him good rates, I guess, eh?
Oh, he can have whatever he wants.
That's
no, he's good. He's funny. Wendell's a funny guy.
He's hilarious. Yeah.
He's been in the business so long that he won't let you give him a break. You know what I mean? He's this is how long this is going to take. And, you know, he's just sending you money before you even invoice. It's like, no, Wendell, don't worry about it. You know, I can download it and set it in the session. He's like, no, I know how long that takes. I'm paying you. He's great that way.
Jason, let's talk about songwriting for a little bit. You do co-writes, you know, you write alone, you write for other artists. Curious if you got a special kind of a system or a favorite way to write. Are you more into rhyming, kind of a rhythmic thing of words, or are you more into, you know, painting a picture, or a combination of both?
I've done both, you know, like it's when I'm on my own, I'm probably like Captain Depresso. You know, I like to sing anything sad, and you know, looking back, I love those songs. I love a song that has pictures and images and you know, but I also love a good, you know, two people drinking beer in a pickup truck song too, if it's done well, you know. So kind of I've done both and enjoyed both. But I think my main go-to, what I'm probably known for, is heavier songs. Like my biggest hits have been nostalgic, you know, like One Step Back for Jamie way back when I first started. And that was the first song I ever had on radio. And then, you know, and Dean Brody, Another Man's Schooled is a pretty heavy tune, you know. So that's like as far as story content. So I'm known mostly for that. But it's funny, I work with a guy named Brian Allen. Do you know who Brian Allen is?
No.
He's a wonderful man, and he played in a band called Toronto, which is like a heavy.
Okay.
And he produced a lot, like Aaron records and all that stuff. And he's also one of the head guys at the CMA. He's a wonderful guy, but he's one of those guys that can play anything. You know, he plays guitar on a bunch of stuff, but he's another guy that kind of gets that stuff.
My last interview was with Dana Manning, and she's a very visual songwriter. She really has to kind of live it out to come up with the song and just kind of be really part of the story. And she even wrote a book that chronicles her writing and her methods. But country now, as we know it, does a lot of that fast, rhythmic kind of word spit sort of a thing. So is that something else that you like to do?
I'm a sucker for the rhyme schemes, you know, like the conventional rhymers. I'm not like an AAA rhyme guy, some of the newer stuff where it's kind of the same rhyme all the way through. I don't go for that automatically. I try to make it a little more complex than that. I like both. I do like both. I'm not going to lie.
Cool.
Like I'm not.
Well, listen, if it's
not my way or the highway by any stretch.
Yeah. So. Some of that stuff, you know, it all depends, you know, the music and how it fits, and sometimes it works. You know, you don't. Yeah. Doesn't need to be meaningful. It just needs to make you feel good, you know?
Yeah.
Right?
That's what I meant to say about Brian, too. I kind of lost track of Brian. I was thinking about his guitar playing, and it was like, as we get together and write stuff, and we call it not writing hits. So it's just basically we just write what we want, just because it doesn't matter. We're just trying to create something, and it doesn't have to have a home. It just has to be good for us. But he wrote huge songs like, What About Love? Only one.
Wow.
Like songs like that. So he's a great writer. That was my point. But then I got distracted because he's such a good guitar player too. and he played on a lot of hit records. So
I'm gonna look him up on that All Music website.
yeah, get him on the show. He's a great
Yeah, that would be
with
great.
you.
Has there been some writing collabs that you've done over the years that just really stick out? I mean, are there some other songwriters that you just really gel with, and you create the magic quickly?
Yeah, over the years, there's been a few. There's a guy that I work with out west that I really like, and I feel like he's my brother from another mother. He's a great writer. His name is Tyler Whalen. And then, Dean Brody, of course, we've been friends so long. We've been through a lot of mud and water together. So there's a history there so that we can pull from each other. We understand what we're thinking. We're not just, working buddies. We're kind of friends on the sidelines too. We actually have conversations, and meaningful ones. And so I like writing with him a lot.
Here we go, bud.
He's a brilliant guy. I enjoyed when I wrote with Jamie Warren too. Those were fun times when we used to write stuff. It was good. And Jason Blaine, another guy, great writer. One day he's just going to have an enormous hit. He's written so many great songs. I can't believe he hasn't had an enormous hit already, but he has on his own, but I mean, just as a writer. Right. So you'll just read about him one day. He'll have a giant hit. But there's a lot of guys out there that I've written with that I like. They're all a little different. Like Dwayne Steele too is interesting writer, and he's deeper. He's a heavy writer. He thinks about every word. Where some people are just trying to get to the chorus, and he's not. He's just very methodical. So it's a different style. There's a lot of great writers. Darlene Chiletta, a girl from out west. I like writing with her. She's full of energy, so she always triggers your brain at the right time. She always says the right thing. And you're like, oh yeah. And then away you go and you're writing again. So there's a lot of great writers out there. A lot of great Canadian writers,
This little series that I kind of started doing because I couldn't go anywhere. I mean, it's unbelievable. Like I'm just kind of focusing on people in Southern Ontario, right? It's massive, the amount of talent. There's so many people and so many incredible careers. On the songwriting front, I just wanted to ask, we always hear our heroes, some of the monster hits that have lasted 40, 50 years. And when they're interviewed, they always say that coin phrase, well, it just kind of wrote itself, in 5 minutes it was done. Have you had a song like that wrote itself?
Yeah, I've had a couple that did well, that went down on the page really fast. It's just kind of like, I don't know what it is. It's the right time to write it or whatever. It's just like you're just in the right frame of mind and you're just like, oh, there's the story. And you can barely get the pen moving fast enough to get it down because it's just coming. I've had those. Okay. And then I've had the ones where you're tap, you're doing, you don't know what to do. And yeah, I've had both for sure, but.
Well, another thing that you do in your studios for, I guess, a number of years is post-audio. That's a lot of production type of work that you do for TV and movies. You've worked with the Oprah Winfrey Network and Disney. Tell us what post-audio means. Tell us what you do.
Well, post-audio is basically, it's just mixing television. Basically, you watch the picture and you put all of the audio together, which is the music and the dialogue and the sound effects, and you put it all together so it comes at you right, just like a mix in music. Mm-hmm. So when you're watching it, it makes sense, So that's basically post audio, and then you send it back in multiple, different formats for wherever it's going, like whatever region it's going to or whatever format they're looking for. So it's kind of it's a way different dialogue than music. Music, we tend to work in a stereo format and or now like there's a couple of different formats that are touching on the 5/1 and 3-dimensional 5/1, which is like a new 7/1 format that everybody's starting to play with. But yeah, it's a different thing. So and I've worked for Chorus Entertainment. I don't know if you've heard of them.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So I've been doing stuff for Chorus for about 15 years. So, and I've worked in the building. I have a card pass. I can get in the building and go to the audio suite and work, and then or I'll do a lot of it from here now. So basically just send me the show and I'll mix it, or a commercial and I'll mix it. And And then basically that's it. And I've done long format shows, and I've done, just commercials. So it's kind of everything.
I don't know where you squeeze the time in with all the music stuff you do. How you put a TV show together?
Yeah, and they take a while. Like there's been times where, man, when I was doing a show for a lot of years, for about 7 years, called The Masters of Flip, and it was
HGTV.
Yeah. So those guys, they're friends, Dave and those guys. So, and Courtney. So that's a fun show to do, and I did that for 7 years, but it's hard. Those are really hard shows to put together because there's so much noise. So it's those type of shows, you're not really mixing, you're just fixing audio. It's like there's a chainsaw beside the guy's microphone. Yeah. How do you get rid of the chain? The skill saw. So it's a different challenge altogether. Music, it's kind of nice to have all of those things. When you're mixing music, it's clean. It's just about putting it together and recording it well and more emotion based. But post audio is more of a technical. It's a nerdier, you kind of get in there and you learn how to solve problems, but it all kind of cross contaminates with music because every once in a while you run into that terrible guitar buzz, and then you know how to get rid of it without destroying the audio, So
the show Masters of Flip, I think I'm recalling which one it is. It kind of connects. Isn't that the one where they're renovating homes in Nashville?
Yeah.
That's what I thought. Yeah. They were musicians.
Courtney and Dave. Yeah. Courtney was Courtney Kale way back, man, early 2000s, and she was on soap operas even. She was on Days of Our Lives and one of those things. Yeah, and then Dave was a songwriter who was a published songwriter in Nashville. So
it connects. Yeah.
It is.
Just, in the last couple of months, I got in a feel, on a minuscule level what you mean. Because my first couple interviews I did, I was using Skype.
Yeah.
And I think Wendell's was the first one I went to Zoom, because I realized Zoom, after you save it, it gives you 2 audio files. So nice. So when I'm done, I have an audio file for you and one for me. So when I talk over you, which I always do, I can cut out that, that audio and bring yours up or at least level them, because that's kind of the problem with these, all these online interviews that we're seeing. Is what somebody's using an iPhone, somebody's using a microphone, so the levels are never the same.
Well, that's post audio. That's
there
basically
you go. So I'm kind of doing it.
You're a post audio guy. Now you can add that to your resume.
I even run the final mix through a compressor.
Man, you're like that's a step above video editor too.
It's a COVID university. Yeah. Let's get into guitars. The one that I see you with all the time is the Telecaster with I guess like a hip shot B-Bender on it, right?
No, it's got a Parson and White B-Bender.
Okay.
And it's got a Will Ray G-Bender.
Oh,
which also has the drop D on it. So it has a drop D at the tail piece rather than at the headstock.
Do you have it handy? Can we check it out?
You got a second? I'll go find it.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's in this building. I'm not going to win any tone awards or anything, but I'll be able to show you how it works. There we go. Okay, now we're close. So can you hear that?
Oh, yeah, it's pretty loud.
Okay, so I'll bring this down so you can see the guitar here.
All right, thanks for bringing it out, man. That's it. That's the one.
This is my old girl.
Okay.
Bender on the back, which is connected to the strap, right? So when you there's a mechanism,
sure,
right? And then this is connected to the G string, so that makes that an A. This is my E, but it goes right to the note, like the ones that you put on here,
right?
Tend to go to sharp first.
Okay.
So you can actually use as a steel guitar lick. That's so I can go. I can actually flip it while I'm playing.
Oh, okay, with the palm of your hand.
Right, so I can use it while I'm playing, not have to let go of the fretboard, and it's cool. Like a lot of guys can bend. Like you don't need a bender to go.
Yeah, sure.
what's great about this is you can't hold all the notes and bend one unless you have a bender. So you can do a lot of cool licks that are just physically impossible. Like, you could never do that on a guitar.
Right.
Right? Or you can do all these weird things. So like you can do a lot of that stuff, but it's just cool tool, you know? So there you go.
It's like an early 90s, right? That one.
This is the anniversary one. So I got this one and the Strat to match it from Fender when they used to do that kind of thing.
Yeah, because I have one of those. It's like early 90s, the American Standard with the Parsons, but it weighs a ton, right?
It does weigh a ton.
It's like at least a 12-pound guitar.
Yeah, like I hand it to guys and they go.
Yeah. So what's the make of the G bender part on it?
Again, the Nashville thing. It's Hipshot makes it.
Right.
But the one that I kind of went with was a guy named Will Ray, who was in a band called
Hellcasters. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so it's his brainchild, and it was his B-bender, so you wouldn't have to wreck an old telly. You know, you could use it as a B-bender, but I just modified it and made a G.
For the G. Okay.
Yeah.
So you play a lot of stuff where you're, pulling on the strap for the B and then using your palm for the G.
Yeah, I do some crazy stuff with that thing, and
that's great.
But it's a necessary tool. You know, I don't need it, but when I have it, it's a different animal. Like I can do things that I just couldn't do, before.
So have you ever looked at trying, one of the McVeigh or the Glazer, where it goes through the body and it's a lot lighter?
Yeah, and we're talking to them now. Like I don't know if you know this, but there's a company in Canada called Cithara. And they're building a signature series. And that's what we've been doing. We've been kind of talking to all the bender makers. I'm trying to advocate Canada because I love Canada. And I think we do things just as well, not to get on that. But
no, sure.
I would love to find a Canadian bender builder.
Is there one?
There's a few. Actually, one of my friends who's a really great record producer and a killer guitar player, Denick DePel, his dad makes them.
Oh, and wow.
He only made them for his son, really, that I know of. Now, maybe I'm wrong, but I mentioned it to Denick that I'd like to, maybe chat with his dad about it.
Yeah.
He's a beautiful man, and I'd love to support him if it's something he's interested in being, supporting. There's a couple others too. I think McVeigh is out of. Are they
That's
out
like
of here?
Virginia or something.
Okay. Well, there's another one out of Canada, but it didn't quite. I don't know if it would handle all the beating that a guy like me would put on it.
Yeah.
So we're kind of looking at it, but right now it's Glazer for mine. Like there's two models that are going to come. There's going to be like a studio version, which is just more high end and nicer build, and it's going to have both benders. And then there's one called the Road, which is just a little more like robust.
I'll throw a couple pictures up I found with you showing that guitar. So let's just clarify the name for everybody. So the builder is Daniel Clark, right?
Yes.
And the company is called Cithara Guitars.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's basically like the Greek instrument that you see in all the Greek pictures. Like a harpy looking thing. As far as I understand, I should know this better, but I like Daniel a lot, and his wife, of course, is in the radio industry. And I just, there's a couple of builders in Canada that I love. That like there's only one guy I let touch my old telly there, and that's Dwayne King in Waterloo.
Okay.
And then he's a great builder too. And then Daniel was also just a great guy and a great builder. And I just wanted to, I wanted to do the Canadian thing and support that.
I'm dying to know who you find that can build one here in Canada. So do you have some tellies that have the Glazer style bender on it too?
I don't have any of those actually.
Okay.
I only have, that's the only telly that I have with bender, but I do have a Les Paul here somewhere with their bender in it. So, and I think that was based on Glazer.
Because the lever is different, right? Because the one that you have, it's kind of where the strap button is. And then the Glaser and the McVeigh ones, it's kind of like a bar that's on the back plate, the heel of the neck. So it's a little bit different. I had one. I had a Bill Crook telly that had the McVeigh bender, and I didn't like it as much as the Parsons, the strap button, because I found when you went up higher, that lever kind of knocks your hand a bit.
Yeah.
And the guitar also kind of feels different because where the strap is it's different. So the weight,
like as lunky as that is, I love the way it feels.
Well, you're so used to it.
Fragile guy, so it's like I don't mind holding the heavy guitar. So
well, you've only done it for 25 years, so
yeah.
That's your exercise, running around on those arena stages with Dean Brody. That's a workout.
It is, man. It is. Yeah.
So you mentioned Vox amps a couple times. Is that your preference? What's your Dean Brody road rig? Let's do that.
Dean Brody road rig was AC30s, and now it's the Kemper mostly. Just because it's such big stages and in-ear monitors, it just makes it easier for the band and easier for the crew, and it's a more static setup every night. Like a simple mic placement on a Vox amp would make it complicated for the other guys in the band, having to change their in-ear mix and so on. So this is just a nice consistent way to get through a live show. So I've been using the Kemper, but it's my Vox recorded into it, and it's a nice stereo sample. So it's a nice big sounding sample for that situation. But the go-to rig was AC30s for quite a while. I think we all go through stages. Like I was a Bassman guy for a long time. And then I was a PD guy before that when it was that. And so it's so funny. But yeah, but right now it's kind of Voxes. But in the studio, man, it's everything from the little Gibsonette to the little Fender. My little Fender Champ gets to work out a lot. It's a great little tool, and my AC30 still gets lots of tube warmth going on.
Yeah, that's great. So you mentioned you've got a collection of about 50 some odd guitars.
Yeah.
So are you heavy into the vintage stuff too? Is you got some
not like Colin Cripps, but
okay.
But I have a few that I really like and that are really rare, and then I just had some real quirky ones too. It's kind of a mixed bag. It was kind of years of hitting pawn shops when that was kind of a thing, you know what I mean? And then, so I have some real unique finds, and, like the Dan Electro with the amp case, and some of those, they're not like super valuable, but they're just in the book, like you got to have one. And the old SG, I got a Les Paul, I got a 335 Gretsch, like a beautiful Gretsch that I got from Diane Kitchener. Actually, it's right back here. I was just using it earlier.
From the distance, I thought it was. I couldn't tell what it was. Okay.
That's the 50s.
That's a beaut.
Yeah, that's from the 50s, 56, I think.
Oh, wow. Oh, it's got the leather thing on the back, too. And
yeah, I got a few. I love them. It's like artwork for me. I love old guitars.
The quirky stuff, you always hear like the session guys and, guys like you, they really like it because a lot of those old quirky guitars got really unique sounds, and they're terrible for playing live. But if you just got to get a track down, you can set it all up, and hopefully the guitar will last and stay in tune for 30 seconds, and you can do the overdub.
That's it.
And then you got the cool sound because it's got that unique pickup and
cool. I have a cool old K guitar.
Yeah, like stuff like that.
Got like El Nico pickups in it, and it just sounds like a monster when it's plugged in, that thing.
So Jason, if you could sum up, your 25, 30-year career in one word of advice to people coming into the business or people who've been in the business for a while, what would it be?
Well, I think just sort of general, like if you're talking about being in the business, it never hurts to be kind to people because you never know where they're going to end up. And and I remember when I first started, it's nice when if you're in a studio setting, you're in a live setting, if the main band is really nice to you and it feels so way better when you do your show, or if you're in a session and everybody is a positive person on the session and is trying to play for the better of the song, not for them to get noticed by the producer or the artist. That's always a smart way to go if you can. I think that's just a general theme in life for.
Yeah, it was probably smart of you to be nice to a guy like Ron Kitchener, right?
I wasn't nice to Ron when I first. No,
Oh, you weren't.
no, I'm not nice to Ron. Ron, go way back. No, he's great. Yeah, but like even Stuart Smith, for example, like my first road experience, you'd think a guy like him would be just like, oh God, a newbie and get out of my way, kid.
Mm-hmm.
But he wasn't. I had no idea who he was until well into the tour when the other guys were saying, do you know what he's done? And then they start rhyming it off, and then you're terrified to talk to the guy,
Yeah.
But I mean, he's a good example. He's just always kind and helpful, never condescending. And the studio thing, like we said earlier, all of that aside, being kind, just being aware in a session, like don't try to be the best guy. Try to be the best team player.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't, you don't have to be the best player that day. You just have to be the one that makes everybody shine or makes the song shine. And that's important. I think, sometimes you don't even have to play. That's just as efficient. That's just as good. Knowing when not is just as important. So it's tough.
Jason, thanks so much for spending time with us on this episode of Guitar Players in Isolation. Like I do with my other guests, I asked them to play one of their isolated guitar licks. So just a short 4/8 bar lick with a brief explanation. And you know what? It would be great if you did one on your B-Bender.
Okay, I will do.
Hey guys, well, I thought I'd show you a lick you can't do unless you have a bender instead of a bender lick. Because there's things, if it's a single note bend, you can do it with your hand physically. You don't need a bender to go, or you can do that without one. But if you get a fistful of notes, you can't bend that string. So this is a good example of that. So here it is. So basically, all it is a fistful of notes, It's in the D position. And then, so basically all the notes around it are ringing, but you only want to bend this note. You can't let it go. You know what I mean? So it's and they all ring. It works for chords too. That's the great thing about a bender.
All right, Jason, that was a great lick. That was awesome. So any of you guys who got a bender on your guitar, give it a whirl. Jason, thanks so much for being a guest on Guitar Players in Isolation. It's just incredible career you've had. Your name pops up with everybody. So I'm thrilled that you took the time out of your schedule to sit with me. And I think people will really enjoy listening to your story.
Oh, man. Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Thanks for even thinking of me. And I'm sorry it took so long.
No problem. All right, man. Thanks, Jason.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, a huge thanks goes out to Jason Barry for spending time with us on this episode of Guitar Players in Isolation. I hope you really loved the interview, and if you did, I'd love it if you'd subscribe and hit the bell notification button. I've got interviews coming out weekly, so stick around, and I'll see you in another week.